Hey, welcome everybody.
Oh my God, this is so
We're going to get started here. My name's Mike McGuire. I'm here today. I'm a professor of communications here at Moraine, and today I'm here with students for my Composition 2 course, which is a research writing course. This semester, my students have been focusing their research and writing on the subject of American poverty. They've been exploring the topic not only through traditional research, but also through a formal collaborative process called deliberative dialogue, through a variety of service learning experiences and through live events like this one. Today, we have assembled a panel of students to discuss American Winter, an award-winning film by Joe and Harry Gantz. For those who may not have seen this film, allow me to set the context by reading the description from the DVD cover notes. American Winter follows the personal stories of 8 families struggling in the wake of the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. Seen through the eyes of families caught in a daily struggle to survive, American Winter powerfully reveals the emotional stories behind America's alarming trend towards a disappearing middle class and a shrinking social safety net at a time of unprecedented need. The latest U.S. Census data shows the largest number of people living in poverty in the history of published poverty estimates, including 16.1 million children. American Winter challenges stereotypes about who turns to social services for help and why, ultimately presenting an intimate portrait of the impact of rising economic inequality and the fracturing of the American dream. As a final introduction to the film, before beginning our discussion, let's view the official trailer. At this time, I'd like to welcome our panelists to the event and give each the opportunity to introduce him or herself. Let's start at the far end of the table, and if I could just remind our panelists to kind of speak right into the microphone, and also, if not only introducing your name, but also just a bit about yourself, perhaps how you focused your study on poverty this semester, or if you have a major, something along those lines.
Good afternoon. My name is LeVar Turner. I don't have a major. I'm just going to school just to go to school.
It's okay, yeah.
My name is Braulio Lozano. I major in English, and yeah, that's about it.
My name is Samantha, and I'm majoring in criminal justice. Go ahead.
My name is Dylan, and I'll be getting my associates in science this summer. Woo-hoo. Clap.
My name is Caleb. My major is history, so that's about it.
My name is Michael, and I'm majoring in psychology.
Welcome, panelists. Glad you're here today, and thanks for the audience. Good-looking audience today. Thanks for being here. Okay, our first question for the panel. The film makes the point that helping a poor family is not just an act of charity, but a means of driving the economy. What do you think about this statement? Braulio, we can start with you.
Well, our economy is very much based on spending. It's very hard to do that. Very hard to have a driving economy when a large portion of the community is in poverty. So I think that's what it's trying to say. And also, I think it's kind of the question also said, helping poor families is not just an act of charity. I think it's also it kind of encourages people to help the poor, because we tend to look down on those that need charity or need help, because we are a very prideful country, and we tend to think that everybody should work on their own. I think that's what I think about the question.
Other panelists, please chime in on that one if you'd like. Again, the question is, the film makes the point that helping a poor family is not just an act of charity, but a means of driving the economy. What do you think?
I think that helping the poor, helping a poor family or any poor really is definitely more than charity, and it is driving the economy, because once you help those who are below the poverty line, it can make our economy greater, because that's what's kind of like dragging, you know, and it's not really benefiting us as a whole. So if we do acts of charity to help those who are, less fortunate than we are, then we could help drive the economy as a whole.
Others want to chime in? Please get an active paneler. Go ahead, Mike.
I agree with that. By helping people through various means, we give them the opportunity to have a job and perhaps spend money, which is how most businesses generate revenue, and therefore they can go out and hire more people. Therefore, overall, it's like a cycle of helping the economy and promoting growth. So I think it's very important that we do that for our economy.
Sam, you look poised.
Well, in the movie, it said that it costs $3,000 to help the homeless, but it only costs $300 to prevent it. I think that's a big point because of the fact that we could be saving money if we only had to spend little money to prevent it. So that would mean we wouldn't have to have as many charities open to help those homeless, such as different types of food pantries or something else that has to run off of government-funded money. So I think that's a big point as well.
Okay, let's go to our next question. Do you think the American dream has changed over the past 50 years? Consider what it was for your parents or even your grandparents. What does it mean to you today, the American dream? Michael, would you like to get us started?
Sure. I actually spoke with my grandmother about what the American dream to her was when she was growing up. And she said it was about starting a family, providing for the family, getting a job, seeing her children go off to college and achieve the dreams that they wanted to. And I asked my mom the same question, and her response was that she was able to go to college and then get a job in, the field that she got her degree in. And she was able to raise a family and get a house and everything. And today, I even asked a friend who was the same age as me, what do you think the American dream is? And he just looked at me and said, it's about getting a job and maintaining. And I agree with that. It is more so nowadays about having a job and making ends meet and not necessarily looking forward to the future. And I think that's the big part of the dream, is to look forward to the future about what you can achieve instead of just living day to day as I think it is now.
Well, to chime in on what Mike said, I believe that the American dream has changed. My parents had parents, and they worked hard. They helped build the communities that we live in today, but they weren't given that safety blanket that they were needed to continue this. They got railroaded, and they got left to fend for themselves. And as I said in the movie, this wasn't built in the fabric of America. So if you believe that you work hard, you're gonna prosper. If you go to work every day, that you'll be able to support and take care of your kids, your family, whoever in your household. But at the end of the day, when they don't need you anymore, where do you turn to? The government organizations that give us money, sometimes they get depleted, so how will they get retrained to get another job? So then they end up taking smaller jobs and have to work maybe 3 or 4 jobs, and they don't get to spend time with their family, so they're losing out either way. So that's what I see that has destroyed the American dream.
Maybe we can ask the question a little bit more directly. I mean, we could talk about it abstractly, but what about for each of you? I mean, what are your dreams as an American? I mean, what do you see in your future? Could you comment? How about Braulio? We'll start with you.
Well, speaking on behalf of my father, who immigrated here from Mexico, I think his dream was always to not only have a family, but to have a job and to sustain success for a long period of time. He has a job, and he has been able to sustain a certain amount of success for a long period of time. But at the same time, he works hard every day. He works. For a long period of my childhood, I didn't see my father because he was always working doubles until the morning into the middle of the night. I was always asleep when he'd come home and when he would leave. And my father always tells me, I want you to have a better life than me. And as he says this, I often look at the house that we have and the things that we have, and I think we have a pretty good life. But I think he means more the sense that you should be happy with what you're doing and how you're living, and not stressing out about certain stuff. So I think that's what I kind of want is my American dream is to be happy, to have a job that I love to do, not necessarily that I need, but that I love to do. But I think that's kind of hard to do, especially in this economy. Yeah, so that's what I think.
Well, for me, my American dream is shattered. I have 2 children. I served in the military for roughly 16 years. And when I joined, I thought I was joining for the betterment of my country. But seeing action, I can see that I destroyed some people's lives. And coming back and being around my family and wanting to be around them, it's like a nightmare because everything has to do with the internet, cell phone, so we don't really have a direct contact with each other. So with this, we become more selfish. So we pick on people on the internet or whatever, bullying. And then when it's time for us to really go out and think we're prepared for the world, we aren't. I know that there were people inside of our class that were supposed to be educated the right way to be able to come up here and sit on this panel. I know it's hard for us to, speak the way that we should be speaking, but those people that dropped out is hurting the economy because when they registered for this class, they should have been prepared, but they weren't, so they had to drop out. So with this, it's going to be a continuing cycle for them. Like whenever they feel like they're being challenged, they're going to quit. And because they quit, it's going to affect the economy. They're not going to be able to get the job that they want to get. So for me, my American dream, I don't know what it is. I feel for my kids because I don't know what's going to happen to them. Even though they're going to school, you never know. So I don't know what my American dream is or could be.
Caleb, you look like you maybe wanted to chime in on that. What's your version of the American dream?
I don't really have one. I mean, my grandfather basically didn't have an education when he was growing up. He couldn't read past like probably 2nd grade level, but he found the job as a crane operator. So, and he provided for my grandmother, like for income. But today you can't even have like a master's degree and find a job. I mean, you probably can, but I mean, some people just can't. You kind of have to adjust the American dream, like to today's economy. Like everything, like LeVar said, is revolved around technology, and maybe we need to make more jobs instead of having more factory jobs. We should make like more tech-based jobs, I guess, and train kids today instead of welding per se. I mean, we still need welders, but just like everything be more computerized, I guess.
Well, my American dream, I wouldn't necessarily say that it would be an American dream, but just a dream in its entirety. It would definitely be to achieve greater things in the past generations. Like, in my family, I'm the first woman to go to college. I'm the first in my generation to go to college. I will be the first one to achieve a degree. I would definitely, and of course my parents would want it for me to achieve greater things than they have. And, they didn't have the chance to go to college. My mother and father, they both went to high school, and my dad joined the military when he was 28. And my mom is still, like, working, trying to keep her head above water. And, that's something I don't want for myself. I would definitely want to learn from my parents' mistakes and, just achieve greater things than they could have when they were younger. Just to try to get a degree and, obtain a job, like he said, just to get a job that I love, not a job that I'm only going to just to receive a paycheck. Like, I want to enjoy working, I want to enjoy the money that I'm taking in and not have to, like, drag myself out of bed in the morning convincing myself that I have to get this paycheck.
Did you want to add into that, Sam, a little bit?
I completely agree with Dylan and how she said that we all want to have jobs that we want to love going to every day, but sometimes it's just not how it works out. I feel like the American dream has changed, not just over time, but I feel like it changes drastically. You could be living the American dream one day and then wake up the next and you lose your job and your house is getting foreclosed on. It's like the people in the movie, Pam and Brandon, they both had jobs and they were all working, and then one day it all just stopped. It came to a halt and they had no more money coming in. I feel like everybody just wants to be able to work and be able to bring in some type of money for their family. So I don't know, it has changed, but it's just how drastically it's changing.
Thank you. Our next question will sort of direct our focus back to the film a little bit more specifically. Pam, in the film, Sam just referenced her, Pam is forced to move into her mother's apartment with her husband and 2 sons. She doesn't tell anyone about her family's struggles. She's ashamed of her family's crisis, and her friends are unaware of how difficult her life has become. Is it possible that some of your friends are experiencing the same sorts of problems? If you were in the same situation, would you feel too ashamed to ask for help? Why do you think people feel this kind of shame? Dylan, why don't we start with you?
I believe, of course, like everyone, people in this position would feel ashamed, and I understand, because obviously they don't feel that others will understand their situation or how they got there, because most people still have the view that, people in poverty just don't want to get a job. They just want to live off, the government funding, but it's definitely not like that as we've all watched the film. But, people not understanding is like a major issue when people feel ashamed when it comes to themselves being in poverty and not being able to support their family. Even family members wouldn't understand. But I definitely think that my friends have been through certain situations similar to this. I mean, talking in class, people in the class have actually spoken about it. They've been through it. It's definitely not something that is left in the dark. But one second. Excuse me, people. If I were in the same situation, I definitely would, my pride would definitely get in the way for a short period of time, but I'd have to snap out of it and try to strive in order to provide for myself and for my family, because, I can't just think about myself when you have others, that are there, you have to support them. But, I consider myself very independent, and I'm pretty sure that people in this film definitely consider themselves independent individuals also. And it's definitely hard for them to go to other people for help when they see themselves as doing so well in a certain situation, and all their friends see that they're doing so well, and then all of a sudden one day or a month later, then they're at the bottom, and they don't want to go to their friends and say oh, well, I don't have the money to pay my water bill, I don't have the money to do so and so, I can't provide for my kids, can you give me money for groceries? They don't want to have to do that, because then their friends are looking oh, well, you're not so high and mighty, are you now? It's that judgmental view all the time, where people don't they look down on those who don't have as much as they do. And that's why people feel a little ashamed. It's just too many people that live in this country judge before they actually help or they listen.
To go off what Dylan said, I think that first of all, we have a misconception of what poverty is. Then we're always front staging. It's like we always want to be seen doing our best or at our best. So it's like you go to your friend's house or whatever, and you have a drink, food, and then you go home. But you don't know exactly what's going on once those doors are closed and you get home. So you really don't know their situation, but you're seeing them in that good state. So you may not find out directly that they need help, and you trying to assist them may hurt them or make them feel ashamed. So that's why they don't tell. I know if I was in that situation, I probably would do the same thing. I wouldn't ask for help. I probably would be that person that's, hosting a party when I know that I shouldn't be. But that's what we do. So once the door is closed, that's when the tears, your thoughts of being alone, but you just let your family and your friends go home. So once we stop front staging and pretending to be so ignorant about the situation, then maybe we all won't feel ashamed, and that helping hand that's being extended to you, you'll accept it.
If I can ask just a follow-up to that question, I mean, it does seem to be very common for people to feel embarrassed in a situation of poverty. Shame, I don't think, is the wrong word. I mean, I do think people feel that way. I'm curious to know if any of you think that might be, in some ways, uniquely American, in terms of it being rooted in the ideals of individualism, of being able to sustain oneself, self-reliance. Why is there a pattern that you think that comes from some of these values that as a nation we tend to hold on to?
I think it's a very American ideal to want to be individual, want to be very successful on your own, and not want to rely on others. We kind of always constantly reiterate that in our society through like media and through popular culture. I mean, we highlight a lot of like self-made stories in this country. And I mean, it's very much in our fabric as a country to like not want to ask for help, not to look to others, to look unto ourselves. It's up to ourselves to be successful, and I think that's why the shame part comes into it, because you feel like a failure if you kind of go to like, if you look to others to help you.
Well, I kind of look at it as our government is kind of doing the same thing as far as hiding what's really going on, and because we're going to war, we're constantly going to war, but we're trillions of dollars in debt. It's like they're doing the same thing as we are individually. It just keeps feeding on. It goes from generation to generation, and no one's gonna stop it because everyone's so into politics on what we're doing that it's kind of like constantly getting ingrained. Like we have to be, the mightiest country. We have to do this. We have to help so and so. We have to do this, but we're not even worrying about what's going on in our own country to be, helping others that much. I mean, we can, but it's, where is the money coming from? Like, how are we balancing things? So it's kind of like they're constantly going to wars, but we're in debt. It's like how people are constantly, like he said, like LeVar said, throwing these parties, but he doesn't have any money to host them, but he's still doing it anyway, just to put on a show.
Thank you. Let's move to our next question. And Caleb, this one will start with you, okay? All of the children in the film felt anxiety and guilt about watching their parents struggle to house and support them. In watching their parents struggle to afford housing, what lessons do you think that children are learning about the world? Are these lessons harmful or beneficial?
The lessons, I think the kids learning right now that life is tough, Even if you work hard in life, even if you go to college, I mean, nothing's ever set in stone. You can just be fired because you're always working, You can just get fired like that, I guess. Like, even to the question that kids think they're a burden to them, I mean, they're kids. They're supposed to enjoy their life, you're not supposed to be stressed out as a kid. And what's the lady named Shannon, her daughter? Like she was her daughter is sick and she's stressed. The girl is sick. Her daughter's sick and she's stressing out. The daughter's stressing out like how's her mother going to pay for her bills, the medical bills. But you know, it's not her fault that she got sick, like her mother said. It's kind of sad to see that kids have to worry about, you know, what their parents are doing. I mean, you shouldn't feel like you're a burden to your parents. You're just a kid. I know kids have to grow up fast nowadays, but I don't think you should. But they are learning lessons, like in life, good lessons, I guess.
Well, the lessons that I think that the kids learned from this was it's false if you think that you work hard that you'll have a prosperous life. That if you aren't born into a wealthy family, then most likely you're going to struggle. I believe that the kids thought they were burdens to their families. And because you think you're a burden to your family, you usually drop out of school, you run away, or you take on responsibilities that you shouldn't have to take on. So when you take on these responsibilities, you're making yourself that tool. So you accept the identity of a tool, and that's what you're going to be. So you get your job, you work hard, but that's it. There's nothing else.
Well, Devin and Ocean are the children of Ben and Paula, and they felt like they were a burden, and they had so much anxiety because they felt like, oh, well, if I wasn't here, then my parents wouldn't be struggling because they have to feed us and they don't have enough money to, you know, do for themselves. And growing up, my mother struggled a lot. Like, she was a single mother of 4 kids. You know, she worked her job, she'd come home and we'd barely see her. Like, maybe in the middle of the night where she'd come in, you know, say hi and then go to bed because she'd have to go to work in like 3 hours. So, you know, I understand how they feel the anxiety because my mom, she didn't keep it quiet with us. Like, she told us exactly how it was. And, you know, sometimes I wish she wouldn't have done it, but I definitely benefited from it because I matured a lot faster and I grew up because I started, you know, handling my own bank accounts and paying my own bills when I was 14. Like, I balance my checkbook. I keep track of my funds. I budget myself. I live on my own now, like, and I'm only 20. Like, I've learned how to grow up and handle challenges that many people my age wouldn't be able to do and still fail to this day. You know, I still have anxiety from it, but the anxiety leads me to make sure that I have money to pay my bills. It leads me to make sure that I have food in the refrigerator. Like, I won't go out if I know that I have to pay my phone bill. Like, I won't spend certain amount of money if I know that I have to, you know, pay the electric bill. Like, I know that I have responsibilities that need to be taken care of before I go out and have fun like a 20-year-old should. But it'll take a lot of people into their late 20s to get a hold of their finances. But I'm glad that, you know, watching her struggle has, you know, folded into my life, and I have learned lessons from her by, you know, seeing how bad it is when you don't really have a grip on, you know, reality.
From personal experience, my family has had experience with poverty, like Dylan's, and I've been lucky enough to I don't have memories of that period of time. But my 3 older brothers aren't. They have vivid memories of going days without eating food, wondering what they were going to wear to the next day to school because they didn't have any new clothes or anything like that. And as I was a kid, they would constantly remind me of those times so I could understand that why I don't see my father that often, because he's working hard so I don't have to go through those times. So I think that was beneficial for me because I gained a better understanding of why my father wasn't around, because he was working hard for all of us. And I think it was a helpful lesson for me now too, because now I understand what it takes to have success. You have to work hard for a certain amount of time to be happy. And I don't think, I mean, some of those kids said things that I said to myself when I was their age, when I was 11 and 12. Like, one of the kids had mentioned, like, I don't want a big mansion. I don't want a big house or anything. I just want a nice, decent house with a nice small family, maybe 2 or 3 kids. And I laughed because that's something I've said when I was in 8th grade. Because those thoughts went through my head often because you see your parents struggle and they're unhappy, and you realize what you want at an early age and what you're willing to do. So I think those lessons are very helpful.
Did you want to weigh in on that, Mike? You look poised.
I don't think any of the lessons that they learned were really beneficial, in my personal opinion. Pretty much all of the children in the film were learning to sort of accept and cope with their situation. They were sort of accepting that they weren't able to get food, that, you know, they may not have a house or home the next day. I don't think that's really a positive thing for a child to have to learn or accept. So I definitely think it was harmful for them. There are plenty of other ways to teach a child responsibility. In a perfect world, you know, we'd have those ways outlined, but, you know, teaching a child that they'd have to learn, you know, to pick which days they can eat or which days they can't because they don't have enough funds. I don't think that's the best way to teach a child anything. So I definitely think that everything that they were getting from being homeless or struggling or failing to make ends meet watching their parents, it was harmful because it showed that even if their parents had a job or were looking for work or were qualified, they can still end up on the street at any time. So I don't think they learned anything positive, really.
Well, if you are unable to support your family and, you know, you have children, how else are they going to learn? You can't just hide it from them and then have them grow up, like, without knowing anything, just in the dark.
I mean, I understand, like, you do learn.
Because they're living in it. Like, you have to be introduced to it somehow.
Yeah,
You know?
I agree. Like, I understand that they will learn from it, but I think it's sort of a harmful way of learning it. It's like sticking your hand in the fire and learning it's hot that way, as opposed to have someone tell you, okay, fire's hot.
How you're gonna learn it's hot?
If someone tells you that the fire's hot, don't touch it.
It's like saying, like, don't press the big red button. I'd push it.
Do you want to say something, Sam?
Well, I mean, I would have to agree with Michael because of the fact that, I mean, I haven't grown up in poverty. My parents have supported me very well, as well as themselves. They both have jobs, and I've never had a want or need for anything in my life so far. But I would agree with him because of the fact that since I wasn't introduced, or since I haven't been through poverty, I still have learned how to get a job, and I still learned how to go to school, and I've still learned how to manage my credit card bills along with a bank account because of the fact that my parents were there to help me. I mean, I didn't have to go through all the struggles that these kids are going through, but I still learned how to do all these things. So I don't think you necessarily have to live through it in order to learn it, but I don't know. I feel like, yeah, the children are learning harmful ways, and it's not beneficial to them because of these kids. And it's not just having it at home. You have to bring it to school with you as well. These kids have to hide it from their friends, and they can't have their friends over like me or you can. Like, they have to kind of lie sometimes. Like that one kid, he said when kids ask him where I live, he says, I don't even know what to say because I live in a homeless shelter. Like, how do you explain that to somebody? I feel like none of that they learned was beneficial to them.
Thank you. Let's take our next question. Sometimes when we talk about poverty, people picture folks standing at an intersection every day holding a sign asking for money. The film shows people who are trying hard to participate in the economy, applying for jobs, working 12-hour shifts and low-paying jobs, still not having enough money for food, and still facing either losing their home or the prospect of losing their home. How has American Winter changed your perceptions of the working poor and unemployment? What myths about poverty has this film unearthed for you? LeVar, we could start with you on this one.
Well, my perception of the working poor and the unemployed are the same. I say this because the working poor does not have enough money to support their family's daily living expenses. The unemployed don't have any money to support themselves, and the benefits that they receive from the government isn't enough to help them get out of their poverty. The working poor are helping support the unemployed from the taxes that are being taken out of their checks. The working poor doesn't make enough money to get by, but don't qualify for government subsidy. So both classes of people are railroaded and stuck in their position with no light at the end of the road. The myths that I have discovered in this is that not all struggling people who live in poverty are unemployed. Because you are unemployed doesn't secure your family a healthy lifestyle. Those who live in poverty aren't always deadbeats. Those who are in poverty sometimes want to work but can't find the work.
Others would like to chime in on this one? What kinds of myths have the film unearthed for you about poverty?
Like you always see the stereotypical, homeless guy, talking to himself, or like the word "the end is near" sign or whatever. and you see him, and it changes your perspective, because these are people who are trying to work out there. They're regular people. They're not having, they just trying to provide for their family. Like I remember I was on a train going downtown once, and I seen this guy. Well, I think it was his daughter or his sister. And he said, "Do you have any food?" Like he didn't stop the train per se, but he just asked everybody on the train, "Do you have any money for like me and my sister?" And nobody gave him anything. Maybe like one or two people. And I didn't have anything on me. And it's kind of sad, because like people always think that people are lying. Like they're rich and they're just trying to get money out of you. I guess like homeless people, they have enough money. But that's not the case all the time. So I don't know. That's, I guess.
Others, any ideas for you that were ideas you had that were challenged by watching this film? That myths about poverty?
Well, for me, it was not necessarily like learning something new, but more of like an eye-opener, because you don't really talk about poverty on a daily basis. Like you don't really have conversations with your friends like, "Oh yeah, did you get food last night, or did you you know what I mean, like, oh, did you pay your water bill?" Like, no. Like, do you have enough money? Like, you don't have conversations about poverty with your friends. It's just like it's a real eye-opener, because I've never taken a class where you literally go in depth with what's going on in the world. Like we don't talk about that in any other class. So it's like it really opened my eyes to actual, like, listening and watching families who are actually struggling in real life. These aren't like actors. It's a documentary. It's a real life instances. Like it happens every day to like even people that are sitting right next to you could be going through that and you don't even know it. So it was just more of like a realization.
I wouldn't say that it opened my eyes to anything. I think it more or less opened. It was more gratifying for me to see people that were in similar situations as my family was, get highlighted, because we often do think of poverty or the poor as homeless people, just homeless people, and there are other people that are struggling, that I was in similar situations as they were. So it was kind of gratifying to see like them highlighted for once.
Thank you. Our next question is, I think, an important one, and it doesn't so much talk about what is in the film as much as what is not in the film. So this question will be for you, Sam, to get us started, okay? So for families, domestic violence is the third leading cause of homelessness. Individuals who experience intimate partner violence lose a combined total of 8 million days of work every year. Many women become homeless when they choose to leave an abusive relationship, especially if they have few financial resources. Frequently, abusers will control access to the family's money, forcing women to leave the home without any resources. Women living with domestic violence are frequently cut off from social support networks. This means that if they leave, they are more likely to face homelessness. Women who live in financially insecure families and communities are more likely to experience domestic violence. Considering all of this, why do you think the issue of domestic violence remained unaddressed in this film? Sam?
Well, to start off with, I think this side of poverty was left unaddressed due to the fact that it'd be pretty awkward if you were being followed around with by a camera if your spouse was abusing you physically, mentally, and I guess you could say financially. Some of these women can't even open up to their own families that they're being abused, let alone the whole world. So why would they want everybody to let them see what's actually going on in their lives? Some of these women are so battered and damaged that it would just be like, I don't even know how to explain it. It'd be too, I guess, harmful to even put on the television or on a documentary. These women really have nowhere to turn to because in the world we live in today, a lot of these women are blamed for the position that they're put in because of the fact you can sit there and say, oh, well, if you're being abused, well, then why are you staying with this person? Well, sometimes these women have no other choice because of the fact that their spouse is controlling their finances, and that where else can they turn to, because sometimes their families shut them out because of the same fact that the families are trying to sit there saying, you're stupid for staying with this person, just leave them. Well, it's easier said than done for some of these women. I feel like in order to help these women, there needs to be more help given. So, I mean, when I went online and I actually Googled what America does to help these women that have been abused, the first thing that came up was how to help women in different countries. And I think that's not really helpful because we're more focused on helping people in other countries that are battered and abused, but we can't even focus on the people that live here in our own country. I think there needs to be something done for these women because of the fact that counseling and hospitalization is so expensive that these women can't even go and get help. I think we need to have more counseling for these women and more places that are there to support them and have more places for them to stay and for them to be safe. Because a lot of these places where these women are staying at, if they go there, they can be stalked by their spouse and they can have their lives threatened. And I mean, who wants to go through that? So I think there needs to be a lot more done than what's going on right now.
Well, in my personal opinion, I don't think that it was a part of the film because it poses a moral issue, because we all know somebody that has suffered from domestic violence in some fashion or another. So it's like you're putting two major dilemmas on the table, and the concentration for neither one is going to be the direct focal point. So it's like the attention that both things need is not going to happen. So if you're walking around and you're being filmed and you know that you're going through this crisis, what's going to happen, or what is the guy with the camera going to do once he sees this action take place? Like, they switch to another family. What's going to happen when the family's turn to be not on the screen? They're fighting because they're poor, and then they're fighting because of the domestic violence situation. So I think that's why it wasn't included in the film.
Like Sam said, like, you know, the cameras are always on them. It's kind of like a depressing, you know, reality show kind of. I mean, people, like, the camera's always on you. You're not gonna show, like, you're not gonna show your true colors on TV. Like, I mean, you're not gonna say disheartening things to your wife or husband or whatever. So, you know, I mean, they probably, to me, they kind of seem like strong people, you know, happy couples, but you never know. So that's my opinion.
I think there's so many issues that compound matters of poverty. You know, in your individual research work this semester, you all took different perspectives. You looked at it from so many different angles, so many different possible causes, and all of these things contribute and compound this issue of poverty. Domestic abuse, abusive relationships would be one of many, certainly. It seems to me, though, that just like poverty itself is something that many people are reluctant to talk about when they're in it, because there's a sense of shame, perhaps a sense of isolation, which maybe can be helped by events like this, where awareness is being raised, where people are talking about it and people don't feel so alone. But it seems to me that in a situation with domestic abuse, an individual might feel yet another layer of isolation, another layer potentially of shame, where they're going to be less and less likely to tell their stories. Right? So I'm editorializing, but I just wanted to add that in.
Well, to go off of that, I feel like these women don't want to open up to people because of the fact that they're being judged so much. I mean, like I said before, it's just not something you want to talk about. I mean, what we're all trying to say is that we don't want to show these women getting beaten. I mean, nobody wants to come out and say that, but domestic violence is...
Is that more reason, though, that we should show it, that we should talk about it, to raise the awareness?
I really don't think it's something we should show on TV. I mean, I don't know. People would think that it would help because we'd be knowing what's actually going on, but it's like, how do you even go about doing that? I don't even know how that's even possible.
Yeah, just because like we should show it doesn't mean that anyone's actually gonna come up front and say, "Oh, okay, well you can record me." Like, I mean, you have to like, I guess, handle it more delicately than that. I really couldn't tell you how, but I mean,
Right.
I saw another documentary recently called about bullying on children, and it showed a lot of horrific things that were happening that these kids were doing to each other, and like it's a real shocking movie, but it also sheds light on the subject, and it's something we don't want to see or touch on, like domestic abuse, but we kind of have to in order to show how big of a problem it is, and it would be very uncomfortable to watch, and it'd probably be very uncomfortable for the people that are being abused to go through, but it's something that probably should happen or probably has to happen in order for us to fix the problem.
I mean, there have been movies on domestic abuse. I mean, I've even watched a couple movies where a woman was being abused by her husband, and it was a whole big plot and storyline and everything, but to actually go into somebody's own personal life and have to, like, sit there and watch it, like LeVar was saying, how do you do that as a cameraman? Like, are you just supposed to sit there and watch it as it's happening? Or are we supposed to just get interviews from the women? I mean, I don't know. I just don't understand how you can even go about that.
It's a difficult thing. It would be a difficult thing to go through, but it's just something that probably needs to happen in order for them to help them.
Yeah.
If yes, this is a complicated issue, right? We could have a whole other panel on this one. But there's one question I want to ask before we get to our final question, and then have time for the audience. Okay. So this last question for all of you, any of you. What role do you think the government should play to prevent, reduce, and alleviate poverty, keeping in mind that many nonprofit and faith community efforts are reliant on government funding?
Oh, go ahead. I don't want to talk first. Just said something. Okay, well then. I feel like the government already does a lot as is. I mean, people can sit there and say that the government doesn't do anything because of the fact that not a lot of people like the government right now. But believe it or not, the government is the reason why some of these places are even open, such as shelters and things that help out people that are living in poverty. I feel like the focus needs to be more on us and our society in general. I feel like we as a community need to help give back more. I don't think we should always have to rely on the government to do everything for us. I mean, and it's easy to sit there and point the finger just because the government is the government, but I feel like not enough of us are standing up and doing what needs to be done. I mean, if there was one thing that the government could do, I believe it would be to fund education adequately and have more job opportunities, obviously, and to have equal education for everybody.
Well, we had this debate in the class when we were practicing for this, and I thought that the government is doing a good job, but the policy situation is harder than we really think, because you got to start with the big government, then you go to your state and your city. It's like everybody's getting a piece of what the big government is giving back. So once it gets down to that smaller person, there's nothing left. So one policy that maybe could be changed is with the minimum wage, because in the film, if you made more than $600 a month, then you weren't able to get help from the government. So if you make $400 a month, then you can get maybe a little bit of help. Like, what is that doing for anybody? So I think the structure of the government and how things are passed down is what needs to be changed.
Well, according to the video, it was a quote towards the end that said CEO pay increased 725% between 1978 and 2011, while worker pay rose just 5.7%. That is something that doesn't make any sense. Like, CEOs own major corporations. They have the money, they have the means, but they still have pay increases, and at that high of a percentage, while people work, their asses off trying to support their families with minimum wage when they only get a pay increase at 5%. Almost 6. Like, what is that going to do for our economy? Like, that's literally digging us deeper and deeper into the hole. So that's definitely a policy that should definitely be changed, because it really doesn't make any sense. Maybe for those who are rich, but all it's doing is making the rich richer and the poor poorer.
To piggyback on what LeVar said, like the minimum wage situation, like I don't know the exact details, but it was like that they made a law in 1991 or something like that, based on like your pay, you get certain amounts of like help, like for like if you underprivileged or whatever. But that was in 1991. Like the minimum wages are higher now, so like you just need to update the policies, just update the policies so they can go to current times and it can adjust to the minimum wage now. And that's, I guess, the solution, I
And
guess.
the current economic system, economic status.
Yeah.
Did you want to weigh in on that, Mike, before we go to our final question?
Yeah, to piggyback on pretty much what everybody is saying as well, I think the government needs to be more preventative instead of just sort of kind of waiting till things get bad. To me, government seems to, watch you walk, then trip, then fall, then hit the floor, and then they want to come, okay, well, we'll help you get back up. But, it shouldn't be like that. As mentioned, they have laws in place to help people, 40, 60 years ago, and it's not making the situation any better nowadays. They shouldn't wait till you only make $400 to decide, okay, this person needs help, whereas if you're making $600, you can afford bread. Wow. I think they should definitely do more things before it gets that bad, and that way, a lot of people won't make it that far behind if they're getting help before they reach that level.
Thanks. Let's move to our final question, and this question is for everybody on the panel. Okay, so given all that you know and have been studying about American poverty this semester, what is one thing you would like to impart to the audience today? Are there actions you would like individuals to take? And Mike, why don't we start with you, and we can kind of go down the panel.
All right. One action that I've learned over the course of the semester is to just get out there and do something, to volunteer your time. I mean, a lot of people, they sit back and think, okay, well, I'm just one person. I don't have a lot of money. I can't really do anything to help the situation. But the fact of the matter is you can. I volunteered at the food depository from, 9 to 12, bagging cereal for people. And, that probably helped hundreds of people for just working a couple hours there. So to me, I would say, balance your time. That's possibly one of the most important things, is to volunteer and plan ahead and use your time wisely, because you can make a difference with just you. You don't need money and all of that and all of the other resources that, you know, people would have you believe.
I would definitely agree with that. I feel like the big problem we have today is that people always think that in order to help out people that are living in poverty, that we always have to give our money, and we have to give big sums of money. We don't have to just do anything else. Well, that's actually wrong. Some of these people in poverty, it's more to them about more than just about money. I think the fact that we just sit there and listen to these people and listen to their stories, I mean, you can see on the movie how it benefited some of these families to just get their story out there and to talk about it. I think we need to be more open to these people and actually listen to them. We don't just have to give money. I mean, donating goods and food and just your time can help out. I think that we just have to make an effort. No one's going to make you go out there and help these people. I mean, we just need to step up and help our community, and it'll just make everything a better place.
Whoever's next, let's just hear a little bit from everybody on this one.
Every little bit counts. It doesn't matter whether or not I have to change to a homeless person walking down the street or donating your time to a charity. Just really go out there and just try your best to help others. And we have to change how we view the poor. They're not just people that are dependent on you. They're people that you also depend on them. I think that's what we should take from this class.
I think everybody that's sitting on this panel has been critiqued by someone in the audience today. And we've all had our misperceptions of what things are. And being nervous, but at the same time knowing that the nervousness that's coming out, I'm helping to educate on the issue of poverty. So hopefully somebody out there was listening, maybe not to me, but another one of the panel members, and took something from them, and then it'll spread. You don't have to be that high-pitched voice that's getting the message out. You can be the person in the background that's writing for that person that's going to speak for you. So that's what I think. You should be able to spread the word from us educating you today.
Caleb, what about you?
Oh man, no, we talked about this.
Oh, what's that?
No.
Did he go? I just want to give everybody a final chance here on this one.
Okay. Taking from this class, I would definitely want people to go out and actually read on it. Like, ask questions about what's going on in your country. Like, get involved. Not necessarily like, you don't have to like go out and, you know, spend time. If you want to, that's great. But start off small if you don't want to just go in and jump into it. Like, research, you know, get more information, educate yourself, as LeVar was saying. Like, just try to understand what's going on first before you go out and obviously judge someone in their situation, or, you know, just provide a helping hand. You know, just get the facts straight. Like, just basically just educate yourself, learn more about what's going on, and maybe then you'll be more involved in what's going on, because then you'll understand, you'll have that empathy, you have the sympathy, you know, to actually be more helpful. There you go.
Like at the beginning of the semester, I was a little indifferent to like the community service options we had to do in class, but as I go on this semester, I start to learn that the little things you do, it's like a walking cliche, but the little things you do really does matter in life, you know. Just helping people out, you just can go a long way. Yes.
Thank you. At this time, we have a few minutes. I think we can open up the floor to the audience who might like to ask some questions of the panel. And I have a mic, so I'll come on over.
Yeah, actually, I got two quick questions. First one is for Dylan. You mentioned that your exposure to some kind of poverty in your childhood made you very independent, self-reliant, and that theme was pretty much echoed by everybody else up there. And you mentioned that now you are determined that that's not going to happen to you, and you're going to be smarter and then move on in the future and do better than your folks did.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like the people in the film also have that determination. They're
Right.
smart, they're educated, but it's still happening to them. What do you think is missing from the equation that these smart, educated, determined people still can't get ahead?
Probably prepping for the worst, like preparing for the worst, but expecting the best.
So you still think it's on them?
No, not necessarily. It's still like on the economy. Like, just there's so many different factors. It's not just on one thing. You know, what was it? His name? The family. I think it was Ben and Paula. He was an accountant with a car dealership. He had a really good job. Was making like $20 to $30 an hour, supporting his family while she was a stay-at-home mom. They didn't have any worries, but all of a sudden, bam, he gets laid off. That's, they didn't expect it, of course, but, they had a little bit of savings, I'm pretty sure, because they were well off. They were smart, but eventually, the economy doesn't get back on its feet as fast as they would think that it would. So, of course, savings ran out. It's just too many different factors that, come into play, and, you just end up at the bottom. You can't, prepare for everything in life to happen.
Okay, my second question is for LeVar. On prior service too, thank you. You mentioned that not everybody's gaming the system, but there are people that game the system. We all know that, and there are people that are deserving of help. There's only so much money to go around, and we're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. You mentioned, I'm being taxed at 25%. I feel like I deserve some help. How do we decide who to help, and where does that money come from?
That's very tough. I think the way that big business is ran, I think that needs to be restructured. Like, the big corporations just don't start off as a big corporation. We had our mom and pop stores, and they were overtaken by those big companies. So then they had to apply. And I think that when that happened, they should have got a piece of stock in the company. Not as far as them losing their jobs, but being able to be retrained to go out into the workforce to be able to find another job. And that would, I believe, alleviate some of the stress that we are going through.
Other questions? Signal to me and I will run over with the mic. Yes.
Some of you mentioned about the government servicing other countries and that there's a problem here in America. What would be your take if other countries helped America?
It would be amazing. It would be nice. That would be great. But too many countries don't really like us that much because we cause so much trouble.
Because we try helping them.
I think that it would be acceptable because everybody wasn't born in America. So it's like your country is supporting you because you left your country to come over here. So I think that other countries chipping in would be a nice effort.
Aren't we don't we owe like China like a whole bunch of money? Aren't we asked for help anyway? Like watching, I remember my teacher showed us like the debt clock, and it keeps like going down or like going up, I guess. And it's like a doomsday clock, So other countries are helping us out. We're just not doing what we can with the money or the right thing to do, I guess.
Others? Raise your hand. I'll come on over.
Don't be shy.
Questions? No?
Come on, baby.
Going once? Twice? Oh, there's a question.
Several of you touched on the fact that, society in general tends to look down on those that are poor and have major misconceptions about those that are poor. And anybody can answer this. I'm just curious to know why you think, what your thoughts are, and why you think society tends to look down on them. Perhaps maybe it's instilled from past generations, or a fear to where it's easier to turn a blind eye because of how easily they can be put in that position. What are your thoughts on why society tends to look down on impoverished people?
I feel like it's that way, again, because the fact that the way we do grow up and how our parents raise us and how they raise us to see, pretty much, I don't even know where I'm going here, but I think it's easier to see someone on the street, like downtown or in your neighborhood, than it is to see someone inside a house struggling. I mean, I don't really go to many houses where people are drinking out of buckets of rainwater like we've seen in the movie, so I'm not really open to seeing that, but we're more open to seeing someone on the street begging for money, and it's the fact that you see someone begging and you think, oh, why is this person begging? Like, why can't they go out and get a job? And then it's the fact that it is so hard to get a job, that these people are trying, but you just don't see them trying, because it kind of goes along with the thing that they don't want you to see what's really happening in their lives. It's like what's going on behind closed doors. We don't always see that. So the movie really showed us that these people are trying everything, and they would go to the ends of the earth just to make a dollar, but we don't always see that.
Okay, well, we're about out of time. I just wanted to take a second and thank our panelists. This certainly isn't an easy topic to talk about, and it's less easy to talk about it in front of an audience. So thank you, audience, for being here. Let's keep the dialogue going. I think that's important. Thanks to everybody, and have a great day.